Assalamualaikum and good day. I'm AZMINA NAJIHA. I will present case study 1 for question 1. Today, I will discuss how private consumption affects national income. Private consumption refers to households spending on goods and services, and it is the largest component of GDP. Based on the article, companies such as MACROECONOMIC, Apple, Harvey Norman are expanding their business. This indicates that consumer spending is increasing. Okay, so how private consumption affects national income can be explained in several steps. First, when consumers spend more, demand for goods and services increase. Second, firms respond by increasing production and opening more outlets. Third, this creates more job opportunity and increase household income. Fourth, when income increase, people will spend more again. Okay, this continuous process is known as the multiplier effect, where an initial increase in spending leads to a larger increase in national income. Okay, we move to the graph part. I will explain the graph. In the graph, the vertical axis represents aggregate expenditure AE, while the horizontal axis represents national income Y. Initially, the economy is at equilibrium at point Y1 with AE1. Okay. When private consumption increases, the AE curve shifts upward from AE1 to AE2. This shift creates a new equilibrium at a higher level of income, which is from Y1 to Y2. This shows that an increase in private consumption leads to an increase in national income. Okay, so in conclusion, private consumption increased national income through higher demand, increased production, more employment, and the multiplier effect. That's all. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is HASIYAH binti RASULI and my number matric is A2483798. Today I will explain the calculation for study case 1, question 2 based on table 1. For A national income, the formula is national income equals to gross domestic product GDP minus depreciation minus indirect taxes plus subsidies plus net factor income from abroad and FIA. First, find the gross domestic product using GDP equals to C personal consumption expenditure plus I net private domestic investment plus G government consumption and investment bracket export minus import. From the table, we will get the calculation is GDP equals to RM 250 billion plus RM 100 billions plus RM 75 billions plus in bracket RM 60 billions minus RM 50 billions. Therefore, the GDP is RM 435 billion. Next, we will calculate the net factor income from abroad NFIA, which is the formula is NFIA equals to receipt of factor income from rest of the world minus payment of factor income from government and household. Following the table, NFIA equals to 4 minus 5 equals to RM negative 1 billions. Now we can calculate the national income. National income equals to RM 435 billion minus RM 50 billions minus RM 20 billion plus 5 billions minus 1 billion. Therefore, the national income is RM 369 billions. Next is B, calculate the disposable income. The formula for disposable income is personal income minus personal income tax. First, we need to find the personal income using formula personal income equals national income minus corporate taxes minus social insurance payment plus dividend plus transfer payment. According to the table, we will get the personal income equals to RM 369 billions minus RM 45 billion minus RM 35 billions plus 4 billion plus RM 15 billion. Therefore, the personal income is RM308 billion. And finally, we can calculate the disposable income, which is RM308 billion minus personal income tax RM60 billions, and therefore the disposable income is RM248 billions.
Assalamualaikum, my name is HAMDINA binti Bakar. My number matrix A24A3405. So, based on the case given, private consumption plays an important role in influencing both aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Firstly, when households spend more on goods and services, private consumption increases. This directly increases the consumption component, or C, in aggregate demand. As a result, the eddy curve shifts to the right, showing higher demand in the economy. For example, when more people shop at places like MOHD, it reflects higher consumer spending and stronger economic activity. Next, higher demand encourages firms to respond. Businesses such as Apple and Harvey Norman will expand their operations, for example, by opening more outlets. This increases production capacity and creates more job opportunities. From the aggregate supply perspective, this expansion leads to an increase in overall productivity. Over time, this causes the AS curve to shift to the right as well. In conclusion, an increase in private consumption not only boosts aggregate demand in the short run, but also supports economic growth in the long run through expansion in aggregate supply. Next, an increase in government spending on healthcare and education will lead to several important changes in the economy. Firstly, when the government increases spending, it directly increases the G component in aggregate demand. This causes the eddy curve to shift to the right, leading to higher economic activity, more demand for goods and services, and job creation. Secondly, this increase in spending creates a multiplier effect. When individuals and firms receive income from government projects, they will spend more. This further increases consumption and strengthens overall national income. Thirdly, in the long run, spending on education and healthcare improve human capital. This means workers become more skilled and productive. As a result, the long-run aggregate supply, or LRS, will shift to the right, increasing the economy productive capacity. However, in the short run, higher demand may also lead to inflationary pressure where prices increase. In conclusion, government spending boosts economic growth in both the short run and long run, although it may cause some inflation initially. Thank you.
So what is fiscal policy means? Simply put, fiscal policy is how the government controls the economy by using two mechanisms, which is public spending and taxation. Think of it like this. If the economy is slowing down, the government can spend more and cut taxes to inject the money into the system. While if the economy with high inflation, the government will do the opposite, which is spend less and raise the taxes to cool things down. So fiscal policy acts like as a balancing mechanism, which is keeping the economy from going too extreme. So for the economic goals, the first one is the full employment. When the government spend more, the business get more customers, so they need to hire a lot of workers. So that's how spending reduced unemployment. In Malaysia case, even though our debt is rising, the government keeps spending because their priority is to keep people employed and the economy moving. Second is price stability, which is to control the inflation. If price rise too fast, the government can cut spending or increase the taxes to reduce the aggregate demand. So it's helped to stabilize the prices. However, Malaysia faces a challenge. Reducing subsidies can help the government financing, but it may increase the cost of living. So the policy must be implemented gradually and carefully. Third is a long-term economic growth. The government invests in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, not just for today, but it makes the country more productive in the future. For this to work, Malaysia needs fiscal disciplines. Because if the investor doesn't trust in our financial management, they won't even invest in here. So the growth will slow down. For the fourth goal is fair income distribution. Fiscal policy isn't just a big macroeconomics number, but it also making sure everyone feels the benefit, especially the lower income groups. Malaysia does this through programs like BUDI, MyKasih, and SARA, which help the lower income group directly. We usually assume that if the government spend more, the public will spend more too, but that's not always the case. Because what people expect to happen in the future change what they do today. For a household, the government is talking about to reducing their subsidies. Even before anything could happen, they already spend less and saving more just to be safe. This becomes something called a fiscal multiplier, which is basically how much economic growth in the every ringgit the government spends. If people aren't spending, that money doesn't circulate. So, the policy becomes less effective. Real example, if people expect fuel subsidies will be removed soon, they start to spending less right now. The government expansionary policy end up being cancelled due to the public fear. Same thing with business. Malaysia has rising debt and consistent deficits. When the investors see this, they will get nervous. Even the government offer to cut tax, they still not invest because they care about long-term instability. Another example, the proposal of bring back the GST. Even just the announcement causes traders to raise price early, and the consumer rush to buy things before taxes. These create unstable spending patterns that make fiscal planning more harder. So the takeaway is this: fiscal policy doesn't just depend on what the government does. It depends on what people believe their government will do. That's why Malaysia is pushing for a Fiscal Responsibility Act to build trust, be transparent, and make sure people respond to the fiscal policy the way it was intended.
Question 3C. The government starts spending 30 billion ringgit while investment remains constant. The MPC is 0.8, so the multiplier is 1 divided by 1 minus 0.8, which equals 5. The increase in national income is 5 times 30 equals 150 billion ringgit. The original income is 200 billion ringgit, so the new equilibrium national income becomes 350 billion ringgit. New consumption is 0.8 times 350 equals 218 billion ringgit. New saving is 0.1 times 315 equals 70 billion ringgit. In short, government spending increase income, consumption and savings in the economy. For question 3D, investment increases from 30 billion ringgit to 100 billion ringgit. The increase in investment is 17 billion ringgit. Using the multiplier of 5, change in income equals 5 times 17, which is 350 billion. So the new equilibrium national income becomes 200 plus 350 equals 550 billion ringgit. This shows that higher investment leads to higher economic growth through the multiplier effect.
Assalamualaikum, my name is FADHILA binti Muhammad Nuran, my metric number 8248320. Based on the statement, Malaysia economic growth is projected to moderate due to combination of external and domestic pressure. This includes weakness exports, lower domestic demand, inflationary pressure, rising living costs, and high interest rates. Together, this factor reduce agreement demand and slow economic momentum. Malaysia is an open economy that depends significantly on international trade. When global demand weakness, demand for Malaysian export decline. This lower industrial output, business revenue, and employment opportunities as export earnings fall. Overall GDP growth becomes weaker. Domestic demand consistent of household consumption and private investment after a strong post-pandemic recovery. Spending pattern are returning to normal level. Consumers become more cautious with firm slow expansion plan. As a result, internal demand contributes less to growth. Inflation increased the general price level in the economy. When price rise faster than income, real purchasing power decline. Consumers are forced to reduce spending, especially on non-essential goods and services. This weakness consumption, which is a key component of GDP. The rising cost of a living place financial pressure on households, more income is spent on the necessities such as food, rent, and transportation. These reduce disposable income and limit discretionary spending. Consequently, many businesses experience lower sales and weaker demand. Higher interest rates are usually used to control inflation. However, they also increase borrowing costs for households and firms. Consumers may postpone major purchases while business delay. In conclusion, Malaysia's slower growth is caused by interconnected economy factors, weak export, reduced internal demand, while inflation and high living costs reduce household spending. At the same time, higher interest rates discourage borrowing and investment. Collectively, these factors weaken aggregate demand and moderate economic growth.